Welcome back to another video. It's Chess Guy, and today I'm going to show you how to do chess notation. So before we talk about chess notation, we first have to talk about the chessboard. So the 64 square chessboard is made of 8 columns and 8 rows. The rows are often referred to as ranks. Squares alternate in color each horizontal or vertical step. The bottom right corner from the perspective of either player is always a white square, which is also called a light square. To remember this, if you're playing on a physical chessboard where the rows and columns are not labeled, you should remember that right rhymes with light. Each row is labeled with a number and each column is labeled with a letter. White always starts on rows 1 and 2, and black always starts on rows 7 and 8. So to find the coordinates of a square, first determine the column that it's on and then the row. So this is a C4 square, and we say C4, we say the letter first, then we say the number, D4, E4. We don't say 4C or 4D. It's always letter and then number. So now that we talked about the basics, we can start getting into chess notation. And for all pieces other than pawns, there are two different parts which tell you different information about the move. The first part tells you the type of piece that moved. So it could be a king, queen, rook, bishop, knight. And the second part tells you the coordinates of the destination of the move. The first part tells you the type of piece that moved, and all pieces are abbreviated to a capital letter. The king is abbreviated to K, queen to Q. It's the first letter of the word, basically. The only exception is the knight, which is abbreviated to N because the K is taken by the king. So the knight uses the second letter instead. The second part of the notation tells you the coordinates of the destination of the move. And again, coordinates is just a lowercase letter and a number, which tells you which square it is on the chessboard. So examples of notation, RC8 means rook move to C8, NA5, knight move to A5, KG6, king move to G6. So for pawns, we don't need to know what piece it moved. We only need to know the coordinates of the destination of the move. So C4 means pawn move to C4, B5 means pawn move to B5, A7 means pawn move to A7. So if you just see coordinates and no capital letter, you know that it's a pawn that moved. What about for captures? So when a move is a capture, a lowercase x will be added to the notation between parts 1 and 2. So Rx b5 means rook captures something on b5, kx c7 means king captures something on c7. The type of piece that's captured is never stated in the notation. So with pawns, captures are a little bit different. Going back to the example with Rx b5, rook captures something and lands on b5. The capital letter, which tells you the piece that moved, is instead replaced with a lowercase letter, which tells you the original column that the pawn was on before making the capture. AX b4 means that pawn on the A column captures and lands on b4. CX d6, pawn on the C column captures something and lands on d6. And the reason I emphasize that the pawn lands on d6 is because it accounts for en passant. A c5 pawn could have captured a d5 pawn with en passant. And with en passant, the square that the capture happened on is irrelevant, and we only note the destination square of the pawn after the capture. There are also two special moves in chess, castling and promoting. So for castling, we write it as O's connected by hyphens. So for short castle, kingside castle, it's two O's connected by one hyphen. And for queenside castle, it's three O's connected by two hyphens. When a pawn promotes, we use the equal sign. A8 equals Q means a pawn moved to A8 and promoted to a queen. CXD1 equals R means a pawn moved from the C column, captured a piece on D1, and then promoted to a rook. So what about for checks and checkmate? So when a move is a check, we add a plus sign at the end of the move. BC4 plus sign means a bishop to C4 check. QXC5 followed by a plus sign, it means queen captures on C5 and also gives a check. FXE8 equals N plus sign means that a pawn on the F column captures a piece on E8, promotes to a knight, and gives check. And when a move is checkmate, we add a number sign at the end of the move. QC8 number sign means queen move to C8 delivers checkmate. And this means short castle checkmate. So besides check and checkmate, there's also other common symbols which you put at the end of a move to tell you more information about the move. Two plus signs can either mean double check or checkmate. A question mark means that the move is bad. Two question marks means it's a very bad move. Exclamation mark means that it's a good move. Two exclamation marks means it's a brilliant move. Exclamation mark followed by a question mark means that the move is interesting. And question mark followed by exclamation mark means that the move is weak. And earlier when I talked about how it's not necessary to state the original square of a piece, this is the only exception, is when a written move can mean multiple different moves on the board. And in that situation, it is necessary to state the piece's original square. So in this position right here, just saying rook c1 check is not enough information to tell us about the move because it could be the b rook or it could be the d rook. So if it's the b rook that moved, then the move would be rbc1 check. And if it's a d rook, then it's the rdc1 check. And if there's a black piece on c1, then both moves would be written with an x in the middle between the rook b, rook d, and the c1 check. So when we're talking about ambiguity, king moves and pawn moves are never ambiguous. And when we are resolving ambiguity, we resolve them in the order of priority. We say the letter only of the coordinates of the original square, the number only, or if neither of these are enough, then we say the letter and the number of the coordinates. So in the earlier example, we say that the letter only because this rook is on B, this rook is on D, so the letter is able to distinguish which rook it is. But in this example, both rooks are on D, so instead we use the number R1, D4, rook 1 to D4. And in this very rare situation, we use the letter and number because all three of these queens can move to e5. If we say queen c to e5, could be one of these two queens. If we say queen 3 to e5, could be one of these two queens. So when neither letter or number is enough, then we say the letter and the number of the original square of that piece. So when do we see examples of chess notation? When you play on chess.com, you see this right here tells you the piece, the left side is white, the right side is black. And if you ever play in a tournament, you might have to record your moves. And basically you would record them if you're playing white moves here, black moves here. And this is basically just a compact version. It's the same thing, it's just a little bit more compact. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you like it, like the video and subscribe if you want to see future videos. And I'll see you in the next video.